Hello, this is Eduardo Sangarcía's remarkable The Trial of Anna Thalberg. It's a novel set during the Protestant Reformation, and it tells the story of Anna, who is accused of witchcraft, and it's about the lengths that she and her loved ones go to save her from the blind beast of the Inquisition. Part of what makes this such a remarkable work and such a thrilling challenge to translate is the way that it combines this a real narrative engine with formal experimentation. So to give you an idea, later on a chapter is set out like this, and so each of these columns represents a character, and as one character is speaking, another character is thinking, and the layout shows that these are happening simultaneously. And it's such a thrilling and fascinating experience to read this, because you skip from one to the other, and there is so much tension here. It's a real power play. So to know what one character is thinking and what thoughts are spurred by the speech of another, it's brilliant. Eduardo Sangarcía, The Trial of Anna Thalberg. I had the great privilege of translating this, and my name's Elizabeth Bryer. This is the first chapter. They came inside and chained her, not saying a word, giving no explanation. Anna Thalberg was crouched by the hearth, stoking the fire, when two men, short and robust like dachshunds, kicked in the door of her hut and assailed her, and she, like a deer surprised by hunters, leapt to her feet and widened her eyes as they drew closer, snatched the rust-licked poker from her hands, brandished before her face an arrest warrant bearing the bishop's seal as if it were a talisman, an amulet that would protect them from her dark arts and make their task of subduing her possible, restrained her hands behind her back, covered her head with an old hood, and dragged her through the crowd of onlookers who had already gathered outside the hut to see what the commotion was about, who watched as the men dragged the young woman out, lifted her into the air, and tossed her onto the wagon as if she were a bale of hay, a sack of tubers, much like the one in the kitchen from which she had taken 3 not long before, when she had set aside her distaff and started preparing dinner for Klaus, peeling them for the pottage that was sitting on the fire and that no one bothered to remove, not the men who seized her without warning, nor the neighbours who went in to loot her meagre belongings as soon as the wagon disappeared from view. A pottage that will boil over and blacken long before the embers die out, long before Klaus returns home from working the land, and, for the length of his walk from the communal plots to the hut, finds himself continually besieged by the villagers' glances that will disperse like flies when he meets them, only to regroup and perch on his back as soon as he turns his head, drawn to his walk home just as they were drawn to Anna's arrest, her shouts stifled by the hood, the men's indolent violence as they threw her onto the wagon and silently jumped in after her, at which time the wain made its way through the crowd of bystanders, bearing witness with differing levels of pity, of outrage, of smiling satisfaction, because finally she had been caught. Finally justice was served. Finally she would get what was coming to her, even if that poor man was made to suffer by consequence. The poor man who will step inside his hut, remove the cauldron from the hearth, and ask himself what the hell has happened here, who has taken his things, where on earth Anna is, why she has left their dinner on the fire, why, when he goes back outside to learn the answers from his neighbours, all of them avoid him. All of them pretend not to see him, just as they were deaf to the shouts of the young woman who, lying face down on the wagon, begged for mercy, or at least an explanation. Where are you taking me? Who are you? What is the meaning of this? But the men said nothing, only whipped the horses and set off, followed by the neighbours' eyes, followed by the children and by the dogs, running rings around the wain as it jolted across the hard dirt road towards Würzburg, a city Gerda had travelled to on foot the week before beneath the harsh estival sun to call for justice. Because I shall not keep quiet, I shall walk the 7 miles to Würzburg and throw myself onto the ground. I shall kiss the boots of the examiners and tell them what I've seen. What the people of Eisingen have seen. The redhead, the outsider, the one with honeyed eyes like a wolf's, the one with the speckled skin of a baneful snake. What they believed they saw by moonlight in the forest shadows and on the river bank. The rumours spattering their talk as they bent over the washtub doing the laundry. That woman, who else? The wife Klaus brought back from Waldbrunn. What the women saw in their husbands' eyes when she arrived in the village. What Gerda herself detected in the eyes of her man. The very thing that roused her to walk the whole way to the city, to the four-mouthed fountain, outside the town hall, on whose parapet she sat, to gulp water and watch, but not comprehend, the slow revolution of the hands on the tower clock. Attentive to the people going in and out of the building, to the crowd of lay people and clergymen among whom she recognized the thick-set figure of examiner Melchior Bogel, at whose feet she prostrated herself to make her accusation. To blame her neighbour for evils as varied as the death of children in their cradles and the drought that had scourged the region for the past year. To convince him to send his lackeys to Eisingen to investigate and gather testimonies, to enter Anna's hut by force and throw her onto the crude board that served as a table, to chain her, cover her head with the old hood that smelled of fetid sweat and saliva, and drag her outside in front of her neighbours, who moved not a muscle because they had gathered only to stare, not to intervene, not to prevent her from being thrown onto the wagon, nor to remove from the fire the dinner meant for Klaus, who with his pitchfork on his shoulder and sweat pearling his forehead, will watch the wagon pass from the ploughing fields without suspecting that his wife is prostrate on it, and when he returns to the village will find his hut looted, his dinner ruined on the fire, his neighbours unwilling to tell him that men came from Würzburg and took her away in a wagon that the dogs and children tailed to the village gates, where they lost interest and moved on to other things.